Hey guys and girls, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going edgy and we're talking about furries. No, not those ones. We're talking about those ones. Blackwings. The deck that everyone loves to hate. You do, I do, we all do. Let's be real. Now, since we don't have defined tiers like the Pokemon VGC, we're going to be using an unofficial tiering for this series. First debuting in 2008 in the OCG and early 2009 in the TCG, Blackwings were released in Crimson Crisis. With only 5 cards to their archetypal namesake, they didn't exactly make a huge impact initially. Even with such a small pool of cards, though, they were immediately popular with fans of the anime as well as the card game, becoming such a hit with fans that the series had to rewrite in order to capitalize on the deck. We're going to go over the history of this fan favorite and fan hated deck in both the anime and the competitive scene. To save some time, though, we'll only be focusing on tournaments and events where the deck placed in the top cut and excluding any and all online tournaments. I don't think that they count towards the deck's meta potential, because online you can basically run anything you want. It's also worth noting that during Crimson Crisis' release, we had an issue with Upper Deck and Konami and their licensing. This was the set that was pushed back a few months in order for Konami and Upper Deck to cut ties officially. Now, that did affect a little bit, but it did not hurt the strategy of Blackwings at all. Seeing the deck made a lot of people very happy, and a lot of people are very eager to try it out almost immediately. After the first few waves of support were released for Blackwings, the impact they had on the game was very obvious. People seemed to adore the deck. Konami took note of this and began rewriting the script for Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. For those of you that are unaware, Crow Hogan, first introduced in episode 30 of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds Season 1, was originally supposed to be the final Dark Signer that Yusei and the gang were going to duel. This isn't the only time that the 5Ds anime was affected by real-world influences, but it was the only time, to my knowledge, that fan appreciation for a deck has changed an entire anime plot. I think that's worth noting at the very least. Blackwings were a dominant meta deck during a large portion of 2009, their hardest matchup being Gladiator Beasts. Starting in July of 2009, they managed to rack up an impressive 12 top cut spots that are currently on file Yu-Gi-Oh! Top decks. While there are definitely more than that, I could not find any more data outside of YouTube, and since YugiTubing was in its infancy, it is difficult to find deck profiles for these decks at this point in time. Blackwing continued to power through at the competitive level and ended up splitting top 4 with Gladiator Beasts and winning Worlds in 2009. The top 2 players for Gladiator Beasts at that point in time were Roy St. Clair, getting 3rd place, and Benjamin Tan Hong Hui from Singapore, getting 1st. I apologize if I butchered your name. I do have his deck profile right here, though. Alright, so as you can see, it was a fairly, I want to say it was a standard list at the time. You ran a lot of Blackwing names that were able to special summon themselves and special summon other copies of other monsters. Now, since you could run the Shura, you could normal summon Shura, you could special summon your Gale, or you could special summon Kalut if you needed to. You would normally want to special summon Gale just because after the battle phase, you could synchro summon into a level 7 with ease. You ran Sirocco because he was a normal summon that didn't require a tribute, being a level 5. You could get into your level 8 synchros. Dark Arm Dragon because it was very easy to manipulate the graveyard with some of these cards. You could get your Mind Control, Brain Control to steal your opponent's monsters to link off of them. You could use your Monster Reborn to manipulate your graveyard to a degree. Following up, we have the extra deck with Arcanine Magician, double Black Rose. That was pretty standard at the time because Black Rose Dragon was such a powerful card. Blackwing Armed Wing inflicts piercing damage and it gains 500, so it was a 2800 beater if it attacked a defense position monster, and normally your opponent was on the back end by the time you got to this card. It was a level 6, which made it a little bit more awkward. However, knowing that you could just normal summon this, special summon this from your graveyard, or this from your graveyard, gave you that monster fairly easily. Blackwing Armor Master couldn't be destroyed by battle, so as long as you could get rid of your opponent's Raigeki type cards, which we didn't have at the time, as evidenced, you could kind of deal with a lot of things. Colossal Fighter was in there because if you got other warriors to the graveyard, such as Goyo Guardian, then he was a 2900 attack point monster, and he could target your Goyo Guardian to bring him back. Dark Strike Fighter gave you a free burn for a game if you needed it. Magical Android allowed you to stay in the game for longer because you did have Kalut and Blizzard if you needed to summon it. This thing was the same way. If you got rid of a level 3 monster on your field or on your opponent's side of the field, this thing became a 3000 beater. It was really good in the mirror match because you could get over random things that your opponent would run that you would also. Red Dragon Archfiend was fairly easy to make in the deck. All you needed was this plus a tuner right there. Same thing with Stardust Dragon and Bob Ruler Archfiend. It just depended on the matchup that you had. I think side deck is very reminiscent of how the time was. We were running a lot of battle traps and whatnot at the time. And then we had this because you didn't want to see light monsters anyway. You didn't run any light monsters in this deck. And that really, well, aside from Arcanine Magician, I believe. What's this? Arcanine Magician and Magical Android were the only light monsters in the deck. So if you had that in, you probably were summoning those. This was a pretty cheeky card. If your opponent special summons a monster from their main deck, so any E-Telly cards, it basically shut that down. You destroy the monster, and then you get to draw a card. It's very cost effective. It's not seeing play now because traps are too slow, but it's a nice little throwback, nice to look at. 2010 didn't slow Blackwings down at all, as they managed to rack up at least 12 top cut spots yet again and take half of the top 4 spots at Worlds again. But what made Blackwings so good? Blackwings weren't the first Swarm deck, and they certainly won't be the last, but they had something that made them stand out at the time of their release. They could search almost any Blackwing as soon as they normal summoned, coupled with the ability to special summon themselves if you controlled another Blackwing, and the lack of any semblance of a once per turn clause on some of their most powerful monsters, like Bora the Spear and Gale the Whirlwind. The latter being able to special summon itself and reduce the attack of an opponent's monster by half. These powerful effects allowed Blackwings to not only get over problem monsters, but also set up their own with great ease. No-Thung, Armor Master, and Obsidian Hawk Joe allowed the deck to control the board and force the opponent to use blowout cards to stay in the game. Not only that, but all but 2 Blackwing monsters are Dark and Winged Beasts, which means that they have a large amount of support for their attributes and, more recently, their typing. Now, we've talked about the old cards now, and I'd like to talk about the new cards. Assault Blackwings, Furries with Edge. Assault Blackwings started coming out in Shining Victories. These new upgrades to this fan favorite deck allowed Blackwings to not only OTK more consistently, it also gave them the option to sit on a towers like Boss Monster and Blackwing Full Armor Master, or board wipe and OTK enablers like Onimaru, Chidori, and Raikiri. This was a huge for Blackwing players. Coupled with the Raid Raptor cards that they were already using to accelerate their deck, they now had the ability to go for something new that allowed them to set up the option of going first or second more confidently. So, how are Blackwings looking today? In the TCG metagame, they're a rogue contender. At the time of this recording, we have had no events in 2020 due to complications, you all know what I'm talking about, and safety protocols in place. Before making this video and doing the research that I did, I thought very little of the former meta deck. And I can honestly say that the player base should not sleep on this deck. Current inboards for the deck allow them to set out the Buster Lock, Cyber Dragon Infinity, Barrier Statue Lock, or Full Armor Master with minimal effort, and their ability to break boards in OTK should not be underestimated. The deck has been on the ban list and currently has multiple cards in the Forbidden section. Not for abuse in their own deck, but I think it's impressive nonetheless. Gale was at one point limited if I recall correctly, and as the current list stands, Gofu and Steam the Cloak were so good at allowing Link monsters to flourish that they were banned. So, what's next for Blackwings? I don't know. But if Konami has taught me anything, it's that like Heroes and Cyber Dragons, they love Blackwings. And with powerful cards like Zephyros the Elite and Boar the Spear, Blackwings are here to stay, at least as a rogue deck. Now, I have another build. So, as you can see, full Simoon package and everything. Rusty Bardiche is banned, and Pankratops is at 1. Red Reboot's at 1, and Steam the Cloak is banned. Everything else in this deck is still completely viable, and it wouldn't take much to change it to make it a rogue deck yet again. I think it's worth noting that this deck does not want to die. And as long as Konami knows that people love it, they're not going to let it. So I think that pretty much ends my little spiel on Blackwings and the history of it. I hope you guys learned something, and a lot of hard work and research went into this video. Finding this data wasn't easy, and I want to thank everyone that helped me put this together, namely the Angry Argonian and my editor Adrian. This wouldn't have been possible without their help, and I plan to keep this series going. I'd like to cover Light Sworns next, but I want to know what the audience wants to see as well. So I'll set up a poll, and if you'd like to vote on what we cover after Light Sworns, please cast your vote. I'll put up 3 options, and we'll go from there. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.